What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. I hope you're all having a very good day today. I hope you all got out to maybe get your morning workout done or anything like that. I certainly know I did. I mean, you got to make sure that you start your day off right, you know? The early bird gets the worm, and believe me, I guess I started fairly early today. Woke up about 4:30 and, kind of got ready and went out and started just just started my day, got warmed up, went for a nice bike ride, and here I am. Did about 30 miles, and again, I hope you're all doing good today. Thank you all so much for being here. In case this is your first time here, please make sure you're subscribed and all of that different good stuff. And while you're at it, make sure that you leave some comments down in the comments section. Let's get together. Let's interact here and see see what we got going on. And like I said, in case this is your first time here, typically what I do here on the morning movie chat, and yes, I am aware that I accidentally messed up that I messed up the name of the chat there. Maverick Pilgrim, welcome to the stream. I hope you're having a good day, sir. And I hope you're all having a very good day. Like I said, I started my morning off right, went out and got home or woke up, went for a nice bike ride, had a good time. It was good. Did about 30 miles. And what about you guys? Did you guys get out? Did you start your morning right? Did you put a smile on your face and get out there and start your day the right way? I think that's definitely something we should all do. Now, like I said, typically what I've been doing here during the mornings is getting down for about an hour, interacting with you folks, and just flapping my gums about movies. You know, something I happen to love and enjoy so much, and I'm sure most of us, if you're here on this show, you probably do. And today I wanted to kind of talk about, I guess it's really the same thing that I talk about all the time, really, is what is it you most enjoy about films, and what is the most important thing to you when it comes to films? Now, I know for me, I actually woke, not woke up. Talking about my morning again. I actually, when I was born, I was born, in the late '70s, and grew up through the '80s and '90s. Quite a time to be alive, and I got to tell you, I was exposed to a lot of movies. We lived 30 miles or 13 miles out of town where I grew up at, and it was in the Midwest. So believe me, there wasn't really much out there but wheat fields and cattle fields, and it was definitely quite a place to grow up at. And it's funny when you're growing up, especially as a child in a place like that, with all the dreams and ambitions I had growing up. And like I said, I was really into movies. You always kind of feel like, I'm not where I need to be at. I'm not where I need to be at to be who I want to be. I grew up, I was really into skating as well, and pretty much anything that was self-propelled: skating, skateboarding, rollerblading, all kinds of different things. I really liked hockey, but of course, we didn't have any ice where I lived at. There was no ice rink, so what did we do? We got on our rollerblades and we found a parking lot, and that's where we played our hockey at. And it was the best we could do, and we had a lot of fun doing it. But again, a lot of my childhood grew up when I was growing up was revolved around films and and TV shows and cartoons and just all these different things that I took in as a child. My grandma, who lived right next door to us, actually had quite a collection of movies from westerns to I guess at the time they would have been modern films, and even things like a whole bunch of the Disney movies like Pete's Dragon, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, any of those kind of classic Disney movies you can think of. We had Cinderella, we had Sleeping Beauty, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and just all those different movies that we had growing up as well. And I remember one of the things when I was growing up that was like a huge thing. I remember when Transformers the movie came out at the movie theater, and I can't remember if my uncle took us to see it, me and my sister, or maybe it was just me, and we went to the theater and seen it, and we actually seen him cussing in the movie. They said a bad word, and it was like a huge thing. I remember like sitting there in the movie theater, I was like, whoa, like they're cursing in my cartoon, man, like that was crazy. Maverick, Kermit, and Drew Boss 5, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for being here. Now I am going to try to keep today's stream short. I've got a function I've got to attend. One of my good friends' mother had just passed away last week. And it's kind of one of those weird things, and I haven't really talked to him in a while, just been so busy with so many different things, and then kind of got stuck in this mode where like, man, I don't know what to reach out and say, especially over text, because for me, I think, just these days, like text is a huge thing that we do in our society, but like, I don't know. It's like, you don't really just break up with somebody over text. You don't, and I guess people do. I guess people do, but it just, just some of those things just don't seem right to me. And, and then at the same time, you kind of get locked in that, like that fear stage. You feel kind of like, like, man, I hate to reach out just, like in a text in that way, say, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sure it means a lot, but I'm gonna see him today. Gonna go, be going to the services, and again, it's a sad thing, and um, I'm not trying to get too, too. How would you say? I'm not trying to get too personal here, but the one thing I always have to say is, we're all always going through a lot anyway. We all have, I'm sure we all have hectic lives at times and things like that. But the one thing I always want to say, I mean, kind of the way I've started to deal and look at death and these things these days is, like death is a natural part of life. Even when it happens in unnatural ways, it comes for us all. And when it's our time to go, it's just our time to go. And that doesn't make it any less sad or anything like that. It's just that's kind of how I look at it. I don't look at necessarily at death as the sad thing, even when it happens in tragic ways. I mean, tragic things happen out there in this world. So, and of course, that's those are really no words of comfort for anybody really. But for me, it's just kind of the reality of the situation. But anyway, moving on. Like I said, movies were a huge part of my life growing up, and I'm sure for most of us, a lot of us here, that is definitely something that we've all probably all grew up with. Aggressively relaxing says, "Did you watch the live remake of Pete's Dragon? It was incredible, and no one talked about it." You know what? Aggressively relaxing, and welcome to the chat, Lord Callus. Welcome to the chat. Thank you all so much. I didn't watch the live remake of Pete's Dragon. I just didn't. I don't really watch any of the live remakes. I haven't watched any of them. I mean, I think I watched Cinderella and the Beauty and the Beast. I did watch those two, but I think after it was pretty much after that, I was kind of like, I mean, and I'm not saying that they make them all shot for shot or anything like that. It just to me it was kind of like, well, I don't know. I grew up on the cartoons and I really like the cartoons and Pete's Dragon wasn't even a cartoon. But I didn't get a chance to see that, and I've been meaning to, and at some point I will sit down and watch all of these remakes that Disney has been doing. I'm sure, the Disney streaming service is coming soon, and I'm sure I'll get a chance to go and, watch those and check them out there. But no, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I did really like, I remember watching that original one growing up, and I really did love that. It was just a great movie, and like I said, I'm not sure how that new one turned out, but one of these days, I hope to get out there and see it. Well, probably not out there, but here at the house. And it's funny because I think a lot of films kind of they kind of shape the way we are, who we are as we're growing up. You know what I mean? Because you see and you learn certain things in film. Because for me, one of the things that I enjoy most about films is just kind of the process of making them. And I remember it's something that I kind of miss about when a new DVD comes out. Because you go and see a movie at the theater, and that's great. I think a lot of movies, if you're interested, it's something you should definitely get out and see on the big screen. I know there's people out there that feel certain ways about certain films that are coming out, and they maybe at one point they're going to watch them and they're not going to see them in the theaters because I don't know, maybe they just don't want to support the film that way, and that's perfectly fine. People are certainly free to feel that way. Okay. Internet was lagging. Yeah, it happens, man. I know there for a while I was having some problems with mine. It seems like things have sort of worked themselves out. But speaking of remakes, I just rented the 1950s The Thing. Oh man, I've never seen the 1950s one. Sounds interesting. I remember oh god, what was the version of the Blob, from back in the day? But like I said, one of the things that I definitely always like about films is just the process of making them. Because to me, the one thing I truly believe is that whether you like them for entertainment, escapism, and all these different kinds of things that people like movies for, and feel free to tell me down in the comments what it is that you enjoy most about films. I did reach out to some of my Twitter followers and ask what their thoughts were. But one of the things I most enjoy about films is the process of making them. Like I said, you get home. Remember when that new DVD came out, and you get home and you unwrap it and you put the disc in and you want to watch the movie, but chances are, I always used to watch the bonus features. I like going through and seeing what the director has to say about the movie, what the producers and the actors had to say backstage, just some of the fun and the antics that they had in making the film, because it's a process, and to me, it's an art form. For me, first and foremost, I really think that movies and films are an art form, and it's not an easy art form to perfect neither, and that's the beauty of it, and rather, even I think even when it comes down to a documentary, documentaries, they're even those in themselves are a certain art form, because a lot of them, you're still trying to get a point. You have a point when you're trying to make a documentary too, so there's really a process that goes into the whole thing of making these films, and that's what I really enjoy about it too. Especially, like I said, because it's an art form. Because movies can make you feel a certain way. You know what I mean? They make you feel a certain way. Maybe there's lessons in them, things that you take out of the movie that maybe it plays a huge role in your life. You know what I mean? Like for me, one of the hugest ones growing up, when I was growing up, that I remember was there's all the and I love music as well, but all these movies that revolve around music and things like that. And God, what was that one about Patsy Cline? When I was growing up, was that Sweet Dreams? Is that what the name of it was? It was kind of about Patsy Cline and everything growing up. I really like that movie. There was the Buddy Holly story with Gary Busey, an absolutely great film. And I actually own that film on DVD now, and it's a good one. If you guys haven't seen the Buddy Holly story, it's a good one. But another huge one for me was the movie La Bamba. I grew up in the Midwest, and I'm half Mexican and half German. German, Danish, and Native American, and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm definitely mixed. I always say that I'm the ultimate mutt. And for me, one of the huge things about La Bamba was, you see. This Mexican American kid being raised, in Southern California in the San Fernando Valley, and he has dreams, he has things that he wants to do, but it seems like at every turn, there's people that are basically looking at his race as something. They went through and changed it. They went through and changed his name from Ricky Ricardo Valenzuela to Richie Valens. Shortened it up, and they even show all the just some of the. There was racism in the movie, but a lot of it was really mostly just discrimination. And you even see like Rick D. Remember, I'm not sure if he's a radio host. Used to host Rick D's The Weekly Top 40, and just I'm sure he did more than that, but. He was actually in the movie, and he played a little part where he's like, he made something made mention of the name and things like that. He's like, oh, Italian, right? And Joe Pantoliano's character, who was his manager, was like, oh, he's like, how did you know? And I just thought that was just a lot of things in that movie. It kind of growing up as a kid, as a kid in the Midwest, basically being a half breed, if you will. I wasn't necessarily subject to necessarily a lot of racism, but discrimination, and people always pigeonhole you when you're like that, and I'm sure we've all dealt with that. You got stereotypes and all these things that we don't necessarily live up to, that don't necessarily match us. But I like what they did in the movie La Bamba, because they crafted it together so great, and they told the story, and they still got all of these undertones in there, and all these things without it having to be so out there. You know what I mean? Like, it was there. And to me, I think that's part of the art form in making these movies, and I think it's something that's just part of the process. And and maybe it's the script, maybe it's the screenwriter, all these different things that go into it, and finding good writers to help make these films, and then the directors and the producers and definitely the actors to help get those messages across without it being so on the nose. Because we see these days, we see so many movies that they put these messages and everything that are just so on the nose. It's like, you don't have to be that obvious. A lot of things are better seen and heard, and not necessarily told. You know what I mean? You don't have to go out there and exactly say it. And that's something I definitely liked about the movie La Bamba was, it kind of helped me growing up, it helped me kind of relate to the world, and it opened my eyes to the fact that there are people out there who are discriminatory. There are people out there who are racist. And you know what? Despite all of that stuff, you can go out there and achieve things. You know what I mean? You don't have to, you shouldn't always take people's words to heart or anything like that. And that's, it was something that hit me as a child, when I was started dealing with some of those different things growing up in life. And that's it's just something that I really definitely liked about these kinds of movies. Like I said, to me they're an art form, and a lot of people don't agree with that. Some of them, like it's entertainment and all that stuff. Sure, you like art entertains. That's the thing, because to me, if you ask me, I think even music is an art form, and there's probably less people who would disagree with that than they would about movies. That they are art forms, and they're always subject to our own scrutiny, and that's the beauty of films and music and just art in general. So for me, I think that's what it is. It's just always that process in making that art. You know what I mean? I know when they went and did, God, it wasn't even House of a Thousand Corpses. I believe it was on the bonus features of The Devil's Rejects. um, Rob Zombie, in the bonus features on the movie, you can see Rob Zombie is talking to I forget the gentleman's name all of a sudden, um, who was playing. Oh man, I can't even remember the character's name now. Otis, who was playing Otis in the movie. There's a couple of scenes in there that they did that were really hard for him to do. And he's like, man, this is kind of pushing it, man. Like I don't feel comfortable doing this, Um, it's just not easy, and I think it boiled down to Rob Zombie just looked at him and said, "Look, man, art isn't easy." And the guy, it popped in the guy's head. He's like, "Oh wow." He's like, right, right. And I think that's an important thing about films and things like that is, when we're going out there and we're making art, which I believe films truly are at their heart, is it's not easy. It takes a lot to go into the films and do that. So that's one of my favorite things is the process of making that art, and to me, it's a huge thing. And I'm gonna go ahead and get back here in the chat to see a lot of people in here. Chatting it up here. Maverick Pilgrim says, I think the biggest issue with remakes is not that they are good or not, but why they aren't seeing original stories being produced by big studios. Well, for me, I think one of the biggest problems with that is when it comes to big studios, these days, especially these days in this climate, is a lot of them are trying to be safe, and that's why I've seen a lot of people talking about Disney going to have a monopoly and everything because they have all these IPs, these just these different franchises and stuff like that, and to me. That's fine. It sucks that we see they are going out there and have begun to already destroy some of the Fox properties and things like that since they took it over, which is absolutely sad. But in the end, it's obviously something that I would say was pretty inevitable. I mean, I think we knew they were going to do that, and um, I think in the end they were just after some different. I don't think they were just after just the Marvel characters. I think there was more than that. But the thing is they're not going to be people who are going to fund and make big like independent films out there in the world. There are always going to be, and I was talking about this the other day, there's always going to be room out there for other studios to make those types of films that people still want to make, that people still want to see. Now the thing is there probably will always be pushback against these kind of films, but that's where the indie and the smaller studios come in at, is they can help fill that void that we know that Disney is never going to do. And if you go back and look at Disney's history, they're not about making small budget independent type films. A lot of the stuff they've always done have been bigger budget, like like stories like that. You could probably take a look at movies like a movie like The Rookie that they did not too long ago. I guess say not too long ago. I guess it has been a while, with that Dennis Quaid, where he was the baseball player and stuff like that. Now that's probably not like a huge budget film, but you can still tell it's like a family film that had a lot of heart, and it was something that was very good. And that they work on that kind of stuff. That's not that, and that kind of movie is something that I think even a smaller studio could have actually probably made better. And I hate saying that because that was actually a really excellent movie. Plus, I love Dennis Quaid too, man. He's just great. He's just great. But yeah, and that's the thing is the original stories. Now, when it comes to original stories, that's there's a fine line there in what you mean original stories, because I mean the way I kind of feel about it is there's so many stories out there that have been done already. To say that some, if you go and make a new space movie, space adventure with robots and people with powers and all these different kinds of things, people are going to say, oh, it's Star Trek, or oh, it's Star Wars. You know what I mean? Just like I was talking a while back about the Point Break remake, is if they would have made that movie and called it something else, everybody's gonna say like, why didn't they just call this movie Point Break? It's Point Break. You know what I mean? So I think there's a fine line there. And original stories, I mean, I hear you. But I think original stories, a lot of those aren't really necessarily for the big studios. They're just not into that because they want the big bucks. They want something that's they're after money. I mean, and that's ultimately what any studio or movie maker is out after when they go to make a film anyway. So, but I do hear what you're saying. It would be nice to get a little bit of more originality in there. Aggressively relaxing says it was super solid kids film. Dragon looked good and the cast was incredible. Check it out if you dig the original one. I'll definitely do that at some point. Yes, Kermit, Richie. Yes, one of my favorite. Yeah, love that part. Um, yeah. I'm half Samoan and half Irish. Whew, man, that's I'm not sure if that makes me think you're probably kind of a big dude. You know what I mean? Um, from San Francisco. All right, all right. Definitely a melting pot there in San Francisco. There's quite a range of diversity, I guess you could say, there in San Francisco, and that's kind of how it was where I grew up at too. But you know what? Even being in places like that, it's so funny how you're in these diverse communities. It has just like a diverse amount of people in them, yet you still see a bunch of these like discrimination and things like that going on. And I know, like when my parents were growing up through the '60s and '70s, and they were dating, I'm sure it wasn't easy for them. I know people still had a problem with my dad, who was, white, basically. And he's not just white; he's got a lot of different stuff in his blood. But basically, that dating a Mexican girl, I can guarantee you that they still faced a lot of things for that, which is so weird. Russell Wells Benjamin says, "Here from the Den of Nerds Patreon, showing some support, sir." Well, thank you very much for showing up here, Benjamin. I definitely appreciate you being here. Den of Nerds, awesome channel. You guys should go check them out and support them. I am a Patreon supporter of theirs as well. Very good channel. I like what they do over there. Now, I try to be somewhat like Den of Nerds, and the fact that I'm nerdy about stuff, I love sharing what I love, but I'm not like a big channel like that they are, where I'm trying to grow more of a brand. Although I am trying to grow my brand, but I am also just a singular man. Josh over there has a great plan, and I am certainly a Patreon supporter of theirs, and I definitely like what they do. And that's just one of those channels that I'm probably gonna support for a very long time. Great channel. But again, thank you so much for being here, Russell. I appreciate you being here. And Bill Mosley, yes, that was the gentleman's name who played Otis. Bill Mosley, yeah, and he's good at that part too. Aggressively Reaction says Disney's monopoly is funny because the argument is that they have the best imaginary friends. Yeah, and it depends on what they're going for. I mean, they certainly do have a lot of imagination over there. I can't knock that. They definitely do. Have that, but as far as the best, I don't know. I think it's pretty hard to say. I know. The other day, God, was it my kids just watched that movie, Ugly Dolls, and they loved the movie. And I watched it, and I was like, wow, this movie actually looks pretty good. And I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I was like, and it's one of those ones when it was at the theater, I'm like, I'm not gonna go see that, and I don't know. So maybe one of these days I might have to maybe just buy it for them on digital or something, or wait till it comes on Netflix and watch it. But yeah, Drew Boss 5 says, sorry I can't stick around. Wish everyone has a good day. And you too, Drew Boss. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a very good day as well. And I hope you all are having a good day and have a great day. It's not diverse, it's segregated. Right. And see, and that's the thing. And what's funny is, I'm not trying to get into politics or anything like that, but that's the funny thing is, it seems like so much these days people are wanting to talk about diversity and just like people getting along and everything, yet we see, it seems like we get on social media and it's like, man, everything you see is like people asking for segregation again. I don't know, to me it's just kind of dumbfounding. But Kermit says, "My dad is very dark. My mom is white as rice. I feel like you, bro. Yeah, for real. And that's and my mom. Like I said, she's Hispanic, she's Mexican, and my dad looks, he looks white as can be. But like I said, my grandpa was was definitely Native American. As a matter of fact, my grandpa actually. I have to see if I could dig up some old pictures of him. He actually looked like Abraham Lincoln, and I'm not even kidding. Like he looked like Abraham Lincoln. He grew out. He even joked one time. He's like, "Man, if I just shave my beard and put on a top hat, I could go out there and try to collect some signature, make some money doing signatures and pictures." The gray man says, "Hey, ag, aglax fellas, man, you're testing my vocabulary there. Is that a word? Aglax? I don't know." He said, "Same brother." Gracefully says, "What's good, Gray?" Maverick Pilgrim says, definitely has the largest catalog of characters to draw upon. Yes, they do. They do have a lot. And I think that's the thing, I think there's a lot about people out there who complain about these kind of things. And, like one thing I always say, if we're going to complain about it, which is fine, we all got to have opinions, but, let's do something about it. Write a script, go out there and let's submit something, I know, certainly in Hollywood, there's a lot of times where, people in Hollywood, they say, "Oh, I'm a writer." The guy waiting your table. "Oh, I'm a writer." Well, what have you wrote? Well, it's all in my head. Well, okay, you haven't written anything, basically. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure what this live stream is about, but I'm all for some Marvel theories. I'm not here on the Russell here on the morning movie chat. I typically and maybe I'll get into some of that tomorrow. I'll make that a subject of the morning movie chat tomorrow with some of the Marvel theories, because I definitely have some of that have been going on. You can go back and check out some of the streams I was doing the past couple weeks after like the. After San Diego Comic Con, I did presented a few theories that I had on that thing. Aggressively Relaxing says, "Ugly Dolls was awful. I watched the whole thing, and the best part was Pitbull." Okay, I'll take your word for it, and maybe one of these days I'll watch it soon enough and find out. Maverick Pilgrim says there was some talk that Steven Spielberg gave at USC. I think there was that where he was discussing the rise of streaming because the studios are scared of making big original movies. That might be true. That might be true that's where that happened at. And I do, which was kind of funny. He was talking about that. Yet I believe he was at the conference when when the Apple Plus was having their big thing to do down in Silicon Valley. I believe he was one of the people there who was kind of like on board with it, or they're talking about doing some movies. So and not that he's being hypocritical, but the fact that he's still going to look at that to make money. And I do remember something about that. I think that was kind of a discussion where they were talking about should like Netflix originals and things like that be able to go up for like Academy Awards and Oscars and things like that. Spielberg almost had to go to streaming to get Lincoln made. Interesting. And I don't know that I've seen all of Lincoln. I know I've seen part of that. Aglax is just my nickname for aggressively relaxing. I type like, oh, okay. No problem. I get you. Hey, bro, I'm 37. I went back to school, just graduated from San Fran State with a screenwriting degree. Awesome, man. That's a good deal. That's awesome. Yeah, dude, and I can see that on your channel. You do some creative things, and you should probably write something and submit it. You know what I mean? Write something and submit it. When Spielberg can't get a movie about Lincoln made, the movie industry is in trouble. Right. Right. Yes. And the other thing is it's kind of tricky when it comes to things like that, because whether if you're making a movie about Lincoln and something's a little bit different, people are going to start shouting like it's Quentin Tarantino all of a sudden doing revisionist history. It's like, oh no, like I got something wrong, or there's I put some drama stuff in there. Ooh. But anyway, the other thing that I asked on my Twitter was, what is the most important thing to you about films? And to me, I think I kind of already said that, but I want to go ahead to get here to Twitter and see what some of my followers had to say about it. Kolb's Bulbs Reviews drops a meme with drops a meme of Star Wars with Han Solo where it says all of it. He says. He says the first two things that caught my eye in this gem almost 10 years ago, which he's got a meme there of, man, what was that? The network? The network? Isn't that the one where they're talking about Facebook? the one that's got Jesse Eisenberg and oh man, Spider-Man. Why can't I remember his name all of a sudden? Andrew Garfield. I've never actually seen that movie, and I've been wanting to so bad. Because what it happened is I never seen it, and I wanted to buy it, and I just been so lazy I haven't got out to buy it. But he says the first two things that caught my eye in this gem almost 10 years ago. There's so much that's great about it too. My favorite film of all time. He says, if I really had to choose, a great screenplay and cinematography are always the first two things that catch my eye. And that's absolutely true. Screenplay is obviously a huge deal. You got to have a good story out there. Cinematography is definitely huge when it comes to movies, and man, I've talked about this in the past too, about like the marriage of Bill Pope and Sam Raimi. When they get together and make movies, they make absolutely great movies. The cinematography, like Bill Pope knows absolutely what he's doing, man. He's just great with the camera, and you see that in nearly every single one of his films. Certainly great stuff, and that's like, I know when I went and seen, and I've talked about this, was X-Men Dark Phoenix. There's just some of the stuff going on there. I'm like, like some of the shots just aren't framed right. They're pushed in too far on people at times, and sometimes back out too far. So those are definitely things that I believe are very important to a movie. As a screenplay and cinematography, again, I believe it is art, and not everybody can do it great. And there are some people out there that can do it good, and there's some people out there that just aren't that good at it. But certainly, Kolb's Bulb's reviews, and if you guys haven't checked out Kolb's Bulb's reviews, he actually did a great video not too long ago, maybe a month and a half ago, talking about Disney and they're taking over with all these franchise films and things like that. And he was talking about a monopoly on them, and I'm like, well. I think I kind of already shared my feelings on that already, but yeah. I've also got Tristan Risk here, who replied with, a good story is where it starts with interesting characters, and I highly agree. She goes on to say, I hate white CIS casts of conventionally pretty looking people. Boring! And, and that's fine. Like I said, people are entitled to their opinions when it comes to that. Like she says, I hate white CIS casts of conventionally pretty looking people, and I get what I get what she's saying. Like I said, she's completely free to feel that way, but I do get it too. In certain films, there's if there's a film out there that's what the cast calls for. I mean, that's what you need, but a lot of movies out there, I mean, we can see, they're doing it in Hollywood, and they've always done it in Hollywood too, is a lot of them have diverse casts of people, Now, what I think is bad is when you get a movie that asks for a diverse cast, like say you're shooting a Western, and, you're doing like cowboys and Indians, and I mean Native Americans, and, no offense to anybody, but, and then, you get, and this is certainly a problem, especially a long time ago, where they get white people to play an Indian and stuff like that, and and they dress them up and all that. It's like okay, like I totally get that, but again, a good story is definitely where it starts at, and definitely interesting characters. And I want to touch on that a little more in the fact that I was actually having this discussion with somebody else here on Twitter the other day. Was they posted about the Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. And we're talking about, they pretty much said like, oh, the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, they're like all right, but the best one's Batman Returns. And I actually agree with that for the same reason as I love Batman, or not Batman Returns, Batman Begins. I really like that one because for me, like, I remember when it first came out, I was kind of like, I don't know, the second one came out, I was like, ooh, like this is fun and exciting. But what I really like about the first one is how they get in there. Yeah, I mean, and this goes the same for a lot of first films, is they get in there, they have to introduce you to the characters. They build that world around it. It's just like a first issue in comic books. You got to introduce us to the characters. You got to give us a reason to care about the characters. You got to build the world around them to make us, to bring us into the world and to make us care about it. And that's something I definitely believe is where a good story starts at. And that's not to say that a sequel or any sequel after that can't have a good story and have interesting characters. But to me, by that point, by the time you get to that second movie, that third movie, the fourth movie, you already know the characters, so you get a lot less of that. Unless they're introducing new characters, maybe has allies or different enemies and things like that, where you kind of get invested in them. So I think that's the big thing, like with a first movie, is you got to get in there. You got to introduce those characters, and you got to write it interesting because you got to give me a reason to care about them. And I think that's for most people. That's why a first film is so great. And I can think of other films. I'm sure there's some films out there that I feel that the second and third, well, I don't know, maybe a second film is actually better than maybe the first film. Kind of like like John Wick is another one of those. I feel the same thing. Like I think the third one is a little bit better than the first one, and not for the mere fact that in the first one we got the setup, we got the introduction to the character, we got all that meat. You know what I mean? We got all those meat and potatoes. And so I don't like, for me it's a tough one because like in the third one they stepped so many things up. Like not even necessarily the production value, but some of that cinematography, some of the action, a lot of the things. We're already fully immersed in this world. And so for me, like John Wick is one of those rare ones where I think the third film is maybe just a little bit better than the first one, but by no means does that mean the first one is no good. It's just I think they took steps, and the way that the franchise progressed to make the third one just a little bit better than that first one. But honestly, I mean, I would have to go watch the first one and then the second one again. But again, a lot of the first one, like I said, it always comes down to that's where they're introducing us to the character, they're setting everything up, they're building that world, and I think that's where a lot of that comes from. While people always think that the first films are always the best ones. Michelle P says on my Twitter, she says, I enjoy the emotional experience of a really great film. You know what? And that's absolutely true. And that's one thing I think like plays well to a movie like Avengers Endgame is the fact that like for me, and I've talked about this before, Avengers Endgame, it really has no legs, it really has no payoff if you're not already invested in the whole franchise, really in the whole MCU. It really has no payoff there because you don't know a lot of things that they're going back and touching on. But the thing that I think gets people confused, and I found a video where somebody really broke it all down. I'm like, man, this dude's good. Is the fact that in Avengers Endgame, they do so much of that, the emotional stuff. They constantly they throw you in. They throw you into something, They throw you into Clint's world. What's going on? You know how Clint feels about his family and everything. He stayed. He didn't want to stay with the Avengers. He's on house arrest at home, and then his family disappears. You know what I mean? And then we see they go after Thanos. After Tony returns, they're building up that emotion, and then they kill Thanos, and it's like whoa, like that was kind of a cliffhanger. And then we get into that world, and it's just a roller coaster of emotions. And by the end, you get all those scenes where they're all coming in after they all return from the decimation essentially, and then it's like whoa, everything that happens right there. It's like oh. You know what I mean? Like it's just so great, and then the way it ends, just on that sad note again, it's an emotional roller coaster, and that's something that's so good about the film. But again, the movie Avengers Endgame, it really has no legs, and without because it's a lot of payoff, it's a lot of fan service that you have to be invested in to get it. But again, it is a highly emotional experience. I remember like for me especially the first time, but I watched it 4 times in theaters that opening weekend. And after the first watch, I was like, "Holy crap! What did I get myself into?" But the thing ultimately is, it's such an emotional roller coaster that it was an exhausting movie to watch. It's exhausting in that way. But again, that is something that I definitely like about films. Miles Z says, "Sorry, it all falls apart without good writing. But my favorite thing is where you get to the end credits and you have watched something truly special. Black Panther and Endgame most recently, but I remember Lord of the Rings, Return of the King's final moments." Right, and that's something I think is definitely story is huge, and I think that's something we've all kind of covered here is that a story is a huge part of any film. Um, so yeah, and I think that's definitely a huge part of any film is definitely the story. Because I mean, without that story, you're not grabbing people and bringing them into the movie and saying, and and saying, here's why you need to like this film. So without a good story, it falls apart. And and there are movies out there that are pretty much just all good story. You know what I mean? Like look at Napoleon Dynamite. Look at Friday. You know what I mean? These movies were small independent films that were all basically reliant upon having a good story. Like if Friday wasn't a good story, they didn't have the budget to put any all that of that other kind of crazy stuff in there. It started with having that good story, and they had that low budget, and it was just something. They shot the whole almost the whole movie in a single neighborhood. They didn't really go anywhere. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the budget for that when they were doing it in the first place. So a filmmaker like an F. Gary Gray, he can do stuff like that. You can go back and take a look at his catalog and see some of the great films that he's done with relatively modest budgets. And then, you go and you can see like a movie like Men in Black International that he did, and he probably could have made a good movie if it wasn't for intervention from others. But again, yeah, story is absolutely great, and you can make a movie with just good story. You know what I mean? With just a good story, that's really all you need. It doesn't have to have the best cinematography, the best cinematics, any of that kind of stuff, as long as you have a great story. That's the most important thing. Like, look at Napoleon Dynamite. Look at Napoleon Dynamite. It's one of those films. It's not a big budget film, but it has a great story. And you know what? It's funny on so many levels, and it's serious on so many levels. There's things to be extracted out of that film. You know what I mean? And again, it's just a great movie. It's just a great movie. And again, like he's talking about Black Panther and Endgame. Definitely. I mean, and the thing for me, like a lot of people, out there, may not like Black Panther and stuff like that. To me, the one thing that was really great about Black Panther, and at first I was hesitant because I'm not like a huge Ryan Coogler fan but the story crafting in there, the levels in which they went in, and showing like you see the radical black man who's out just saying, no, screw the world, we should be on top of it, especially Wakanda. We have all the things to help our brothers and sisters. And then you see somebody who probably somewhat agrees with him, but is a little more judicious with that, being T'Challa and things like that. So there's a lot of those levels in there, man. A lot of those levels in there that I think a lot of people fail to recognize. That and that comes down to story, not just just the C, because we see by the end of the film, that last fight scene, it's in the CG and all those things going on it. It's absolutely atrocious. You know what I mean? Like even X-Men Dark Phoenix. I think X-Men Dark Phoenix could have actually benefited from a good story. It didn't have a good story and it didn't have even like good cinematics and things like that. Like it needed a lot of help. But to me, a huge factor in that was the story, and it just wasn't done too good. Mads Mama Bear on Twitter says, a good story, likable characters, some action doesn't hurt, and Bruce Willis. Yes. Bruce Willis. And as a matter of fact, I need to go and shave my head so I can get trimmed up a little bit so I can get my Bruce Willis on. But yeah, good story, likable characters, action definitely doesn't hurt. And again, I don't think action for me isn't important, but if you like action movies, definitely having some good action in a movie is gonna make that, if that's what you want to see. And Bruce Willis, man, yeah, he was the greatest at it too. You know what I mean? I don't know. He's just in a lot of good movies, and he knows. Bruce Willis is just a great actor. He's one of my favorite actors, and a lot of people these days say it seems like he's been phoning in a lot of his performances and everything lately, and. I don't know. Sometimes I think a lot of that just comes to he's good at his craft, and there's a film. How much does he have to invest in it? And I think he should invest a lot. But so I get what people are saying when it comes to some of that stuff too. But again, I like Bruce Willis, and I like the movies that he's in. He's always kind of, I remember watching him when I was a kid, watching Moonlighting and stuff like that. Aggressively Relaxing says, I was excited to see a video explaining why Batman Returns is the best one. Well, I mean, for me, Batman Returns. You know what? I think a lot of people actually like that one. The Batman Returns, the old Michael Keaton movies. A lot of people like that one. Me, I like the first one. But Batman Returns was by no means bad. I mean, hell, you got Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito in it. Absolutely great, just great stuff. I mean, we look back on them now, we think it's a little bit cheesy, but I think some of that is just due to the fact that we've been spoiled with a lot of these movies and things like that. So. I mean, you go back and you look at a movie like that, and it's like, Aggressively Relaxing says X2 was a hell of a sequel. Yes, it was. Yes, it was a great sequel. Oh, I'm sorry, Maverick Pilgrim. But X2 is definitely probably one of those ones that the sequel is better than the first one. Definitely. Maverick Pilgrim says there's a difference between writing a standalone film and then writing a follow up versus writing a long form story that takes multiple movies to tell. And that's true. That's true. And I think that's one of the things that I think we see a lot of that, more of that these days, where people are writing like trilogy films. Like what was that one I watched, The Maze Runner, which I thought was actually some pretty decent films. It seemed like it was something newer. They were trying something different. A lot of people knock those films and this and that, but for me, it was like, you got a young cast. You're trying to bring in a lot of these actors that are trying to make it in the movie world, and we've got to do something to get those people out there. So certainly, like the story overall, by the time you get to the trilogy, it wasn't bad altogether, but I think it still left a little bit to be fulfilled. But I definitely think you're right there. You're definitely onto something there, Maverick. Um, Maverick says no one says the movie Return of the King is a bad film because it can't stand on its own. As a story. It's not intended to. Right, right. And because you got to be invested in the characters and care about them and know where they've been and where they're going, to really know what's going on. Russell Wells Benjamin says the first scene with Hawkeye was put in to give Endgame context as a standalone film. Right, exactly. Yeah, and I agree with that. But again, if you're somebody who went into it and don't know anything else about the MC, like you could actually get away with watching just Infinity War and Endgame at the same, back to back, and you could get a lot of it because Endgame does a lot of it, or not. Infinity War does a lot of that, introduces you to characters and kind of gets you invested in it. But you have to have at least that to even really get all the emotional pull out of it. The Endgame had in it. But yeah, definitely. The Hawkeye at the beginning, I remember when I first seen it, I was like, oh man, they're starting this way, man. That's rough. But the whole way they started that film to me was a big thing. I did a video not too long ago about Thor's journey in that movie because some people have a problem with it. And me, I was like, man, I absolutely loved it. I thought that was storytelling at its best. Because a lot of people didn't understand. And that comes down to cinematography and stuff in that movie too. Once they got to Titan, or to the Garden Planet there to attack Thanos, everything leading up to that and just all the stuff leading up to that, I knew something good something good wasn't about to happen. Like it was going to be bad, all bad. Just the way the different shots were framed, everything like the back and forth on the films, like everything that was happening up to that point, up to where he chopped off the head, I could just tell because like you can see just like one of the biggest scenes where it's probably where it's the most intense is the shot where they show Steve Rogers in Black Widow. Walking into Thanos' house. It's just like it's kind of shaky in the way it's all framed, the way they walk in, the way the way they walk into the picture and everything. You could tell it was building up so much tension, and then it ends with him chopping off the head. And I remember being in the theater, everyone's cheering like, "Oh yeah!" Like, "Oh damn!" Like, and I remember sitting there seeing that scene. I was like, I was sitting there exactly like Rocket. I was like, "Holy shit!" I thought the same thing. I was like, "What did you do?" And I've talked about this multiple times, man. Thor, just the way, and Chris Hemsworth, the way he delivers that line too. He's like, he's got that kind of rasp and that shake in his voice. He's like, "I went for the head," and you see him walk off. The music and the way the camera moves, and he walks away like a man who's drunk with rage, and at that point regret. And to me, that was just like phenomenal storytelling. Even thinking about it, it's kind of gets my eyes a little welled up. He's Maverick Pilgrim says that scene was supposed to be in Infinity War at the end, but it was too confusing. A scene to just introduce Hawkeye in the last 2 minutes. Right? Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna say I haven't watched all of the bonus features, the whole commentary for Avengers Endgame yet, but yeah, it was. Yeah, and I know they talk a lot about that. Um, Maverick says you also get the Pixar cry in the first scene of the movie. You also get the Pixar cry. Yeah, yeah, right. Um, Russell says, watch the commentary for Endgame. Directors explain they added the scene to give context to the film. Yeah, yeah, and totally. I've watched that part of the film, and a lot of the things that they talked about there at the beginning. I mean, I totally get. And a lot of that stuff is stuff I already knew anyway. Like I said, I've been watching films since I was a kid. Like when I see things in a film, like I get it. That's why I see people out there who have and people are free to have their own opinions. They're talking about this and that, and people talking about Thor and his journey on being fat Thor and being angered by it and stuff like that. And I'm like I understand you don't like it, and that's cool. But me, I understand why they did it. I understand what's going on here. Because like I said, just like I was talking about with the framing of those shots and everything leading up to the point where he goes and he chops off Thanos' head. I knew it wasn't going to be good. I knew it wasn't going to be good, but they did a lot of that same stuff in that final battle scene, leading up to everything with Thanos and all that stuff. They just great filmmaking. The Russo brothers know how to make films, and that's just what it comes down to. And they're great filmmakers. Definitely great filmmakers. Aggressively Relaxing says, I saw Endgame at a drive-in when Black Panther showed up and began the war chant. The whole parking lot chanted it with the Wakanda soldiers. It was incredible. That's cool, man. I haven't been to a drive-in for a long time, man. But that would have been great. That would be great. Maverick Pilgrim says, agreed for context, but not to make it stand alone. I don't think you could possibly make Endgame a standalone film. Too much stuff going on, and that's true. And that's what I was saying. I think it's just there is too much stuff going on, and if you just watch Endgame, you're not invested in the characters. You don't really know. I mean, you get that scene there at the beginning when Tony Stark finally returns to the Earth and that kind of stuff. I mean, that gets you emotionally invested in some of the characters because that was just like some absolutely great acting on Robert Downey Jr.'s part, great writing and stuff like that. Although I got to say, some of it struck me as a little bit cheesy too. It's a little bit cheesy, and I should probably go into that in a video one of these days. But yeah, as a standalone film, it just doesn't have the legs like it could be. Without having at least Infinity War there. He says again, watch the commentary. They intended for that scene to give the film its own legs and standalone film. Yeah, agreed. Shellback TJC, welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here. Russell says, but I agree. There's a lot to the universe that the film wraps up. 23 other films in the universe. Yeah, and it does. I mean, and that's why I say. I mean, it's a great film by all means. But as a standalone film, somebody watching it as a standalone film would probably be confused in some cases. And in some cases, but they do enough in there to where like you could watch it alone and you could get a lot out of the movie, but like the real payoff was for us fans, the ones who were there through every film, watching every film, who were invested in it. That was the huge payoff for that film, and I think that's why it did so well. Was for that exact reason, because it had all these people who were invested in this universe. Um, uh, Maverick says, "I think we are agreeing." Yeah. In the end, I think you guys are like on the same wavelength there. Russell says the way Thor left the way Thor left to that movie score was an intense cinematic moment. Oh, it was too. I'm telling you, the first time I seen it, I was crying, dude. I was crying. Like it brought out tears for me as soon as he chopped off that head. Like I said, people were sitting there cheering, and I'm just like, man, y'all people, like, I get where you're coming from, but like that's just sad stuff, man. I was sad. I was sad by it. Everyone says goosebumps. Yeah, it was. It was total goosebumps. I mean, and I get it every single time I watch it. I'm kind of getting them just right now. I'm thinking about it. Then they hit you with the 5 years later. Big oof. Yeah, it was. Maverick Pilgrim says, you brought up Fat Thor. Why can't an obese character be included since everyone wants representation in films? Right. And that was the thing. I know a lot of people were upset about that, and me, I'm like, man, that's the journey though. Like you don't like. Yeah, maybe, and the thing is, a lot of people don't relate to that because they've never done something that's dishonorable, that they don't feel honorable anymore, that they don't feel that they are worthy. A lot of people haven't ever been in that position to know that feeling. And the thing is because that's what shame does to you. That's not what not feeling good does to you. You indulge. You don't care. And a lot of that stuff, a lot of the weight of our emotions, man, it weighs a lot on all of us. That's why I always tell people, like, I've told people, like when they're starting a diet or anything, trying to eat healthy, and they go, and they're like, oh, I had a cookie or I had some ice cream or whatever. Not, they had some bad food. And the thing is, I always tell people, don't beat yourself up over it because the guilt and the shame is going to weigh you down down more than that cookie ever will. Don't feel guilty about it. Just know that you slipped up and you're going to go, and you don't even have to redouble your efforts. Just know that you slipped up and it's all good. Don't beat yourself up over it. Just move on. Just continue to do your diet or whatever. Like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Maverick says, how many people were impacted when Fat Thor summons Mjolnir in Asgard and shows he's still worthy? So powerful for people to feel like they are lesser because of their body issues. Powerful moment. And Maverick, man, I highly agree there, man. I highly agree there. Like I said, I did a whole video talking about Thor's journey in that movie. And that's what I say. I mean, a lot of people don't get it because a lot of people just haven't been there. They haven't been there. They don't realize that. And then the thing with the being overweight and being worthy and just how we see ourselves too. There's definitely those layers that they put in there as well. Just like I said, it's great filmmaking, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not upset at people who are upset at Fat Thor or anything like that, because a lot of people just don't understand that. Like me, I always grew up a chubby kid, man. Like, I was a chubby kid my whole life. When my daughter was born, I was probably at my heaviest, like 260, 265. And when she was born, one night I was watching TV and an infomercial for P90X came on, and I had actually been looking into P90X in the first place, looking at it, going, maybe I just need to try that, and I did it. It came in about a week later after my daughter was born, and I started that day and just started going at it. And I didn't do the program like everything they told me to do. I just did every other day. I just did the strength training and started finding immediate results. Just anyway, that's something else. But I think it's just something that a lot of people, not everybody can relate to. So maybe they just don't get that, or maybe they haven't been in one of those types of positions where they've felt disgraced and dishonored. So again, I don't fault anybody for not understanding it, because again, it's subtle layers that they put in. It's a silly comic book movie. This isn't supposed to be something serious. Right? This isn't supposed to be a serious movie where it's got a lot of drama and everything in it. That's just, this is a silly comic book movie, right? It's just a dumb comic book movie about comic book characters. But that's the beauty of what they've done with the MCU is they've found ways to do the storytelling in that way. In that way where where it sucks you in, and they put all those subtle levels in there that make you, that maybe you don't realize things about it. But for those people who do understand, they get it. And again, to me, that's the artistry. That's the beautiful thing I love about the art of filmmaking. I absolutely love it. Russell Benjamin says, "Big belly gang, yeah." Yeah, I'm kind of rocking a little bit of one right now, bigger than I want to be anyway. Kermit says, "I just put the cookie down, bro. Put the cookie down, 1 inch at a time." 1 bite at a time. Yes. Anyway, that's all I've got for this video today, folks. Thank you all so much for being here today and listening to me flap my gums once again. Pay attention later. I will probably be I say probably because it's been busy and I got some functions to go take care of today. But I will be doing my comic previews for the week, things that are getting ready to come out. And thank you all once again so much for being here. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed, click the little bell and all of that good stuff. I talk a lot about movies here on the morning movie chat. Occasionally I talk about music, and I definitely talk a lot about comic books. And again, when you guys are here, you guys are what make this stream so awesome. Again, thank you all so much for being here. And if you can do me a favor while you're at it, make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get those notifications. Make sure you smash that like button or dislike. I honestly really don't care, but make sure that you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the 2nd Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.